this together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching, we are grateful that you're with us here today. I'm Reverend William Hall. I'm the pastor of the St. James Community Church here in Chicago. And for those of you that are watching on the Impact Network, we're thankful that you're with us live today because we want to make an impact, because that's what we do here at Rainbow Push. We want to pause right now and we want to continue to pray for those in Ukraine. We want to pray for those who've been dealing with the pain of witnessing innocent people die. Can you imagine waking up one day to a bomb being dropped on your home, soldiers rushing in your home with guns, innocent people being shot in the streets? Also, we're witnessing the migrant crisis on the borders. Now we are seeing up close and personal the stories and hearing from those who have been trapped, Africans who came to Ukraine to study, but they cannot find refuge. Again, study war no more. So we're praying for peace and policies that can make this world a better place. Today, we want to lift up our apostolic faith family in the passing of none other than Isabel Brazier. What an amazing woman who accompanied her husband, Bishop Arthur Brazier, for so many years. And so we are grateful for her life, her legacy. We're praying for her son, Dr. Byron Brazier, as he continues to lead, but also in the midst of his sorrow and pain, along with his sisters. To the Brazier family, to the Apostolic Church of God family, we are praying for you here at Rainbow Push. Also, across the world, we saw a plane crash, a plane that was carrying over 100 people in China. And so we're praying for those families who have been impacted by the horrible news, and we're praying for those that need to be comforted in their loss. Here in Chicago, we lost a living legend, Miss Mary D. Where would we be if we did not have the gifted, glamorous, energetic, passionate woman who fought to make sure that there was representation on WGN, a nationwide global TV station here in Chicago? It was none other than Miss Mary D, who was the face and the voice for many African Americans to also sit at the table at WGN.
Every day, somebody says, well, how are you doing? I said, I'm nearly perfect. I'm getting there.
We highlight another life well lived. A woman who turned her near-death experience into a lifelong mission to help other victims of violence.
In 1971, popular Chicago TV personality Mary D was just leaving the TV station where she hosted her own show when a man took her and one of her guests hostage into a nearby forest preserve. The gunman shot D twice in the head and killed the other man. D was left temporarily blind, but survived. And not long after, she was hired by WGN in Chicago.
Good afternoon. This is the Midday Report. I'm Mary D reporting.
Becoming one of the first black anchors in a major city, paving the way for so many others. Mary D was a Chicago girl through and through, growing up on the city's south side. She lost her mother at the age of 2 and was raised by a woman she called a cruel stepmother. She escaped her home life by moving out at the age of 12 and wrote about her upbringing, her kidnapping, and how she overcame it all in a 2013 memoir called Life Lessons on Faith, Forgiveness, and Grace. It was those experiences that led her to fight for others. She was a driving force behind the Illinois Victim Rights Bill, which was the first of its kind in the U.S. After leaving the anchor desk, Mary D became the head of community relations for WGN and would go on to help raise more than $30 million for charities helping children. Mary D, role model, trailblazing broadcaster, and victims advocate, died this week at home in Chicago. She was 85 years old.
Mary D, we are better because of you, your life and your legacy. We are grateful for it. Today, on a good note, we want to celebrate none other than the Willie Wilson. Dr. Willie Wilson, giving away over $1.2 million in free gas.
Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and the Rainbow Push Coalition have long supported Dr. Wilson, and we love Dr. Wilson. The last time I was with Dr. Wilson was during the holiday season when we were in Tent City doing this very same thing that we're doing today, standing with Dr. Wilson as he be a blessing to those who cannot be a blessing to themselves in so many ways. And so, Dr. Wilson, we thank you, we love you, we support you, and anytime that you're doing something, and Attorney Boykin, who's my Central State alum as well, we will be standing with Dr. Wilson and Congressman Davis, Attorney Boykin, and all of these partners. We thank you so very much. Thank you.
We didn't select just the African American community. We selected the all nationality, white, black, Asian American, Latino American, the whole 9 yards. Somebody have got to set the example to try to bring Chicago together and Cook County together. We got to get out the kick with the crime, violence, and stuff like that nature as well. So somebody got to bring it together. So what we try to do is help everybody. It doesn't matter.
And so we're thankful for his generosity. We're thankful that the city of Chicago has got a little pep in his step because of this great man's heart. So again, thank you, Dr. Willie Wilson. And we got some scholarship news to announce. Christianna Gray has received a full ride scholarship to the Chicago State University here in Chicago. And so Christian, we're glad that you are part of the Push Excel Rainbow Push family and that you're going to school and you're going to do it at the Chicago State University on scholarship. Before I leave you today and before I let you go, I want to take a moment of personal privilege to remember my father, none other than William H. Hall Jr., who started right here in this auditorium serving and working and singing in the choir. I remember going to the reunion concerts and witnessing Mrs. Brenda Jones under the leadership of Reverend Jones. And so I wanted to say to my dad, thank you for introducing me to the movement, and thank you, Reverend Jackson, for being an example. And so we're getting ready to leave this moment as we have this moment in history, going back down memory lane, the Gary Convention over 50 years ago. Yeah, Reverend Jackson's going to share this moment in history, but just in case you're a little late today or you missed something, you can always go back. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. And again, thank you for those who are watching on the Impact Network. All right, y'all, this is Reverend William Hall, and I'm grateful to be with you, but Reverend Jackson's getting ready to share this moment in history. And don't forget, tell somebody, text somebody, tweet somebody about this moment of insight, inspiration, and information, because the push is on now.
1965 was the seeds of a new political era. Right to vote was the first time in almost a century where we've been denied the right to vote. 5,000 people have been lynched, mobbed, buried in mass graves. All back, we finally got the right to vote. The seeds were sown in Selma, but it matured in Gary, Indiana in 1972. Richard Hatcher was called to be elected on the same day. Inauguration was earlier. Hatcher's was later, but the fact of the matter, Hatcher had the blackest ideology. He hosted the convention. His hosting it made it royal. He had police and all the infrastructure of Gary, Indiana, and the unions. And then we had Amir Baraka, who was involved in that, Ron Daniels, and a host of nationalists who were involved in the driving agenda of black people finally coming together. And at the convention were 10,000 people, mayors from major cities. Detroit was about to get a mayor. Coleman Young was there, and Maxine Waters was there. And I really think if Shirley Chisholm seized that moment, she had a very different campaign. Those said the convention was too black and maybe anti-Semitic, but none of that was true. It was about black people coming together and believing we could. And in some sense, the 72 convention set the mood for 84 when I ran for president, 84 and 88, and then Barack in 08. So in some sense, that was a mood setter. We'd never come together in those numbers before. A convention saw going on, I want to give Amir Baraka lots of credit because he alone was a driving force in that convention. He had ministers, Reverend Boyd and Reverend Brooker and others of us. So we thank God for that convention. It made a big deal, and we need to have another one, frankly. 60 black congressmen, it seemed like we've joined committees and become chairs of committees, but nothing is happening. It really makes a transformational difference. And the Biden transformation bill, it cut out community colleges. That's the key to four-year colleges. After all, many students cannot afford four-year colleges, get 2 years free, then they can go and handle the other 2. The debt is so great in colleges, they cannot make it. So many of our nurses and barbers and beauticians and the like come from 2-year colleges. Many get the academic background, 2-year college, and then they go on to 4-year colleges. Or they work while they're going to school. We need the free 4-year colleges, the free 2-year colleges, really 4-year colleges as well. And so I think that the 72 convention laid the groundwork for all this new political talk. We're going to make it happen in our lifetime. God bless you and keep hope alive.
Well, Chicago, I know we used to connecting through the push now moment, but we are going to do that as well. But we have a very serious issue here in Chicago. And we have with us today Alderman Jason Ervin. He is the chair of the Black Caucus. And the issue that we are really going to talk about today for this brief moment is remapping here in Chicago, meaning that wards that we know now might not be. And so we're going to expound upon that. And so I want to welcome to this moment here on the Saturday Forum none other than Alderman Jason Ervin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Man, no doubt. So let's get down to it. What exactly is at stake? We hear the headlines and then we read about a few things about this whole remapping. What is exactly the remapping issue?
Really what's at stake is the ability for the Black community to sit at the table to make decisions in city government for the next 3 elections.
Wow.
That is what is at stake in remapping. We would like to maintain a decent percentage of our voice in city government. We understand we've had some population challenges, but that doesn't mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely.
So we are fighting for the policy ability for our community for the next 15 years.
So let's walk it back for those that do not know. How many wards are in Chicago?
There are 50 wards in Chicago.
So there's 50 wards in Chicago. And so the issue is exactly what with this remapping?
The issue is how many wards will be able to elect representatives of their choice from the African American community. That's the perspective that we as members of the Black Caucus represent. Today, there are 18 African American wards in the city of Chicago.
So 18 out of the 50?
18 out of the 50 are African American wards.
Okay.
And at times we've had as many as 20.
So when we say African American wards, these are wards where the population majority is
right, the voting
African American,
population,
and the alderman or alder lady is African American as well.
Yes.
So we went from 18 at the peak.
Actually, 20 at the peak. When we talk about 20 at the peak in the last 50 years, yes.
And 20 in the last 50 years. Where are we now?
Right now, we are at 18 Black wards, but we have 20 Black aldermen.
So we got 18 Black wards, 20 Black aldermen, and right now there's the battle going on. And so the battle is to go. We've gone from 20 to 18. Now where are we trying to go?
Well, you know, under one plan, which is the plan that the majority of members of council are supporting, we would go from 18 down to 17. There's another plan that puts us at 15, which actually will probably turn into 14 or 13. But that's what the battle is over right now, is essentially maintaining a Black majority of aldermen in this city council. And not only that, it also creates the scenario that in 15 years, when we have the elections in 2035, we may be down to 10 or 11 based on how these wards are drawn in the population patterns that exist. So this is not just about today. This is about our future and the future of Black Chicago as it exists. And so we have to, you know, stand up and fight in this moment. Otherwise, our community will lose its voice at the policy table.
What year was that you said? 20 what?
2035. So this map will take us through 2023 elections, which are coming up next year, the 2027 elections, and then the 2031 elections, because we will not have had an opportunity to do the new map by 2031.
So what we're looking at is essentially a shift of power for the next 2022, for the next 13 years. Mm-hmm. We're looking at a proposal to reduce the voice and leadership of African Americans in city hall chambers down to only 14 for the next 13 years.
And possibly even more based on these population patterns that are emerging. And that's where I think a lot of people don't understand, because you have to look at not just today, you have to also look at tomorrow. The plan that we propose, I think, would maintain the African American community and our voice and our policy decision as we go forward. But the other proposal will drastically limit the voice of black folks in the city of Chicago.
And so when we talk about the role of the census, when we talk about the role and the importance of voting, what do you say to those things? Because the population is counted through the census.
That is correct. I mean, the census, and we're starting to see now what we all suspected was that there were undercounts of our community. And unfortunately, we're at a point right now where we have to move forward with the numbers that are given. And our anticipation and our hope is that this is the same impact that it's had across all communities. Because if everybody was undercounted, then it's not an issue. But if the black folks specifically are undercounted and other communities are not undercounted, then it has an impact on us.
Wow.
But today we don't know the full ramification of all of that. So we have to deal with the numbers that the Census Bureau has given us for right now. And I know that's hard to believe with all of the work and all of the gains and folks like Reverend Jackson have done to help everybody. Now we're the ones with the gun at our temple and being asked to sacrifice. And as people have said before, I am not going to live on my knees. Right. We're not living on our knees. We have to go to the polls and do and exercise our responsibility and vote to preserve our own communities.
So let's get ready, as we get ready to go our separate ways. This is an equity issue, right? This is an issue in which at the end of the day, we want our fair share as black people as it pertains to representation in City Hall. We want our fair share of land, wards, and we want to make sure that for the next 13 years, because this is not just an issue
That's right.
that is going to be done in 2022.
That is
This
correct.
is if we do not say, hey, enough is enough of shuffling us around, enough is enough of using us as a pawn, political pawn, and enough is about ignoring our existence, basically. And so if we do not, again, first of all, encourage, and you're doing a good job, and I know that encouragement is far and few in public service, but if we don't first encourage, but second of all, if we do not engage in the policy shaping, and if we are not represented when the opportunity to be represented is through the census, and last but not least, if we're not voting for those who are on our side, because unfortunately there are those that even though you have 36, there are some that are opposing this that are black aldermen, right?
Yes,
and so
sad.
and it's sad. So
Right.
this is an issue of it's bigger than who's right and who's wrong. It's about what is essentially fair, and what's fair is that we all be represented as black people in the way in which we need to be represented. And you're doing an awesome job of bringing this to the table.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing this moment with us today.
We have to. I mean, the stake of our community, we must fight for our people. We must go out and vote and make sure that we maximize our opportunities and representation in this moment. So again, on your June 28th ballot, you'll have two choices. And you'll see one choice with 10 people and one choice with 30-some people. And the side that black folks need to be on is the side with the majority, because that's where the majority of the people you elected to office are standing and fighting for our community.
So those of you that are watching as we prepare to go forward here on the Saturday Forum, you have a choice. And that choice is essentially this. Either A, you want us to stay where we are as it pertains to representation, 17 plus 1, 16 plus 1. So we want 17 voices of that's 17 black aldermen. We want 17 voices in city council, or sit back, say nothing, even if it has to go to a ballot. Don't vote. We'll mess around and only have anywhere between 12 and 14, maybe even less than that for the next 13 years in Chicago, meaning that a whole generation would not know what it's like to have a black alderman as their leader in the ward in which they pay their taxes and the ward in which they live. And so again, thank you so much, Alderman Ervin.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. West
All right.
side, South side in this together.
We all in this together.
Stay tuned because the push is on now.
This is Percy Gray Jr. Remember, shoot for your dreams, not your neighbor.
This is Gerald Gray Sr. Shoot for your dreams, not your neighbor.
Hey, this is Dr. Cedric Oliver from Embassies of Christ in Yeary, Indiana. And here's what everyone needs to hear. Shoot for your dreams, not your neighbor.
Shoot for your dreams and not your neighbor. The future is waiting on your dreams. Shoot for your dreams and not your neighbor. The future is waiting on your dreams. Shoot for your dreams and not your neighbor. The future is waiting on your dreams. Shoot for your dreams and not your neighbor. The
not thy shame.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Faith Jenkins, and I will be reciting There Is More to Me by Orlando Caesar. This poem is not just a poem to me. It inspires me and shows me that the possibilities are endless as a young lady and an orator. The sky is the limit is what I like to go by. There's more to me than athleticism and style. Yes, I can be a world caliber and run the mile. Go for the distance or become a sprinter. Dominate the sports in which I enter. That may not be peripheral. It may not be my center. I am an artist. I am a scientist. I am an inventor. Yes, I can own the runway. I can move from prance to stalk. In pulsating rhythms, I can dance. I can walk until you notice me, but recognize there is more to my image than you might surmise. I am a scholar with the intellect to analyze. I am a physician, a painter, a politician, philanthropist, electrician, and mathematician. With collar white or collar blue, I am multifaceted and versatile too. I harbor shallow and enlightening thought. I am a civil servant, soldier, and astronaut. A writer, a judge with a law degree, a teacher, land baron, and franchisee. From a lineage of great thinkers and achievers, triumphs of the human spirit are in my genes. I have heroes, mentors, and believers. I have the extremes and people in between. I have kings in my background and a legacy of queens. There is more to me than bulging sinews, than entertainment, sports, and news. Do not restrict me to a certain venue. I have perspectives and conversations of the deepest sort. Expose me to a level playing field, and I will be a force that will change your views. Discard the box because it is confining. I have a spirit, a silver lining that defies the hype and stereotype. Discard the fiction, deny the lie. Give me the opportunity to try to dispel the contradictions, where I must be allowed to fly.
This week I have with me a very special guest. As we end Women History Month, this Black woman has made history. In the 53 years of the Jazz Institute of Chicago, this is the first woman of African descent to lead the organization. The world needs to know this woman right here, Mrs. Heather Robinson. How are you doing, Heather?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I just have to give a moment to say thank you as we're in this amazing, the hallowed halls. So thank you for this opportunity. And just anybody that's graced the stage, thank you for everything you've done for us.
Man, Heather, so to that end, right, 53 years. This year, you all are celebrating 100 years in which the Louis Armstrong came to Chicago.
Yes.
You've been leading the way. You've led through a pandemic. Half of your tenure has been through those ups and the downs.
That's right.
What is it like day to day leading the Jazz Institute of Chicago? And what do you exactly do at the Jazz
Right. So what we exactly do is we have a wonderful mix of public programs, mostly free, and education programs. Our free programs include Jazz City, which is a partnership with the Chicago Park District, and of course, the Chicago Jazz Festival, which is coming back this year in 90% of its glory. We'll be there all 4 days, all of the stages, minus one, but that's okay. So we're glad to be back. So the music is back.
So you serve in the community
Yes.
with programming for young people.
Yes.
You engage through music, and then the amazing Jazz Festival in Chicago.
Right.
So let's go down memory lane, right? Music has always been a part of our history, whether it's on the plantations where we use instruments that came from where we come from, Africa, and throughout the movement music, right?
Yes.
Where has jazz been throughout this movement, and how has it been important to the movement of the world, basically?
Right. I'm glad you started in Africa, right? Because that's where everything started. But just that rhythm and that the hope that we carried and that joy that we carried. So if you look at jazz, starting in New Orleans, coming to Chicago with, like you said, Louis Armstrong 100 years ago, and others who came as well. So in the 20s and 30s and 40s, it was joyous music. It was upbeat. Our dearly departed board member, Dr. Timuel Black, who served on our board until almost his last day, would always say how much the music meant to them while they were away at war or during the Depression. It was just happy, joyous, upbeat music. Then the 50s came.
Yeah, the 50s.
Now, it was always coming, but as things really started to change in the day-to-day lives of Black people, you saw the musicians change too and have to speak out. If you look at Max Roach and his album, you know, about the resistance, if you look at these women musicians, if you look at Billie Holiday, talking about Strange Fruit. Nina Simone, Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't just be anymore. We have to, call the roll. You know, I talked about these women who spoke out, and the men too. Even Louis Armstrong, when what was going on in Arkansas with the Little Rock Nine, he was traveling the world and said, these babies are here suffering. I can't go. And he caught flack for it. So if you look at the music and the changes that it took around that time, and it's still developing as we look into we're here in a new millennium, as we look ahead to a new decade, young people are carrying that music forward and making it their own. We stand on the shoulders of everybody I mentioned and thousands more.
Wow. So music has been a part of history, right?
Yes.
Music has met us in every crossroad in history. And when we look at Chicago, right, where the Jazz Institute is housed, but yet again, music reaching the world. Here in Chicago, you mentioned the Timuel Black, 102 years old, civil rights leader, icon, historian. Where has jazz shaped Chicago?
So I think Chicago shaped jazz. Again, if we look at, it was born in New Orleans.
Hold on, run it back. Chicago shaped jazz.
It grew up here, you know, in the clubs and in the hearts and minds of so many musicians that gave, and really Louis, who gave it the sound that we think of today. And that's still happening. You know, in the 40s and 50s, there were hundreds of jazz clubs. I mean, and some of them were clubs, like sit down in your seat, but some of them were just spaces.
Harlem Nights.
Harlem
you think about that
Chicago
energy.
Nights,
Right.
But that's what was happening in Chicago, and a lot of that has changed because the music evolved, right? Radio, television. But if you look now, post-pandemic, a lot of these young musicians are doing exactly that.
What role does music, in particular jazz, but what role does music play in shaping our young people? And why do you see it as important as the leader of the Jazz Institute to make these small pockets, drummers, look small
at you,
pockets. Why do you see it as important to make these pockets for young people to engage in music?
Well, I want to talk about jazz education, and you're exactly right. You know, unfortunately, over the last years, that's the first thing to go when there's a budget. You know,
so they can run that back.
You cut the arts, right? Mm-hmm. But what we've been able to do is fill in some of those gaps. So our Jazz Master's Residency program puts a jazz musician in a band classroom with a band leader. So it's wonderful so that students get to hear about jazz, but it's also a staff development opportunity for the teacher who maybe don't know as much about jazz, maybe doesn't see his or her students through that lens. So you're able to enrich your curriculum.
Wow. So
increase
the equity issue. Mm-hmm. And again, this is very important because when we look through the hallways of history, education has oftentimes been the cornerstone, whether it's vocation, whether it's classroom, whether it is college. At the end of the day, education is key. It's the door to open up this world, no matter where you are in life. And the interesting thing is that you said that in spite of the cuts that we've seen time and time again, that you have some way, somehow raised the funds, developed the curriculum, developed the partnerships to make sure that those who are connected to the Institute are going into institutions of learning throughout Chicago. That's unbelievable. And how has it transformed? Like, what have you witnessed and what has the change been with young people?
So just to mention another program, a partnership with Jazz at Lincoln Center in New York that does pop-up concerts on playgrounds for young people. It's called Let Freedom Swing. So the students I'm talking about I'm on a path for music, right? I love music, I like it. But what about that kid that's not even thinking about, I'm not thinking about never exposed, but I got to see a trumpet on my playground. So whether or not that student becomes a musician or if it just enriches their lives, that's enough for us. We have a jam session every month at the historic Jazz Showcase. So you've got world-class, a house band of musicians.
Where Robert Glasper comes. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
No, I mean, right. And so these students can say, I played the piano that. I played on the stage that. And, be a part of that history while they're learning from some world-class Chicago musicians. So getting that hands-on training. Exposure and learning. You got an audience of 50 people and you've got Gerard Harris or Bobby Ervin III looking at you saying, go. I'm going to walk you through, but go. And so to see them transform like that, so adding the joy and the added intellectual creativity that comes from music, whether again, it's you're playing it or it's in my school and I can be a part of it, or I'm at a jam session and learning from it as well.
Wow. So Heather, as we're not quite done yet, but we're moving closer to our time of going our separate ways. Heather, what is it that you see, right? As the leader of this 53-year-old institution, the first Black woman, you are living history, telling her story here today. What do you see as your contribution to the movement of equity, justice for all people? Where do you see the Jazz Institute literally playing their role in this need to make the world a better place?
I mean, first of all, I'm extremely humbled by my role, and I'm extremely esteemed by being what I like to call a culture keeper. Like, I feel a tremendous responsibility to preserve yet nurture, which is our mission statement. Not just jazz, but Black culture. The story of jazz, what it means to people. So I feel the weight and the inspiration.
Hold on, let's run this back. A cultural keeper.
Right.
Can we unpack that for just a couple of minutes?
We gotta keep the flame going, right? And again, I'm feeling all the energy of being on the stage right now, but without us, not just me. I'm doing it for y'all. I'm doing it for the musicians. I'm doing it for the kids. I'm doing it for the notes. I'm doing it for history. But as I'm raising money, or going into that office every day, or remote or whatever, it's like my responsibility is bigger than this moment. How are we going to continue to keep the legacy of jazz alive and thriving in the hands of the next whoever? You know what I mean? It is about the history. We got a museum of it, but it's also a gallery where we want the creativity to keep going. And so how do we,
I like that.
Let's fan those flames.
Let's fan that flame. So as we prepare to go our separate ways, one of the things that I love to do is, first of all, extend my gratitude to you and to Reverend Jackson. Reverend Jackson, thank you. I mean, where would we be if his generosity and his love for all people in generations to come? And so I wanted to give you this gift. But before I do, again, you all are celebrating 100 years.
Yes.
The Louis Armstrong has come. I'm thankful for my pen that you've given me.
Little Pale pen, yes.
And when is the Jazz Fest? When is
The
that
Jazz
happening?
Fest is Labor Day weekend, so we'll kick off the Thursday before.
Okay, Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
So this is the woman who is curating with an amazing team, an amazing event. And so I want to give you this, right? So we want to go back to when we first started this Push Now moment. We had an amazing artist. Her name is Janine Harris, and her gift of art is unbelievable. Genealogy is her contribution to society. And so I wanted to gift you with a few things.
Oh my goodness, I thought this was just a backdrop.
Nah, this is Miles Davis, the Miles Davis.
Wow.
And essentially only thing that settles is dust. And so this piece right here, along with something else that I think you would love, it is a few cards. And I want to give you these cards. These are yours.
Thank you.
And two of them are from the Winston Marsalis, him, and the others are accenting women as we conclude this month of Women History.
Thank you so
one
much.
is the woman at the well, the woman, the goodness, the forgiveness that one must know that comes with life. And so I want you to enjoy these cards.
Thank you so
Compliments
much.
of the Janine Harris
That's
from
beautiful.
Genealogy.
Thank you.
And the purple and the purple and the
Y'all
purple.
look at we match.
And so I definitely want to say thank you. Heather, anything you want to leave us with that can charge us to make our own lyrics and melodies?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Thank you, everybody that contributed to this moment for us, right? We're able to be here, Pastor Will, together. And I just want to encourage you to listen to some jazz.
Who's on your playlist? Real quick.
Gregory Porter is always on my playlist.
Everything you touch is.
Okay, sorry, we were gonna have a concert.
It's a whole vibe with him.
Don't let anything prevent you from listening to jazz. Just try it. You might not like the first thing you hear. You might not, and there's no understanding to it. I know some people are like, I got to get my mind right. Just open yourself up to listen to something.
So again, Heather, what a joy it is. Again, these cards are truly
beautiful.
going to
Thank you
hopefully
so much.
inspire your journey and those you connect with. So how do people stay connected with this institution?
Yeah, so we're across all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Jazz in Chicago, and our website is jazzinchicago.org. You can find out all things Lewis and all the things we're doing all year long, in person and virtual.
Jazzinchicago.org. Okay, last time, y'all, jazzinchicago.org. And this is the Heather Robinson, the first African-American woman to lead the Jazz Institute in 53 years of history. And so we thank you again. And the world is a better place because of what you're doing. And Chicago owes you the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Chicago.
Hey,
thank
Chicago.
you.
All right, y'all, stay tuned because the push is on now.
Many of us have been watching for the last few days of the confirmation hearings of the first African-American female to be nominated to be a justice on the United States Supreme Court. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is a judge's judge. She is everything that we could possibly have imagined in terms of a jurist. As I listened to her respond to the questions and the challenges that she faced by the senators, it was interesting to note that she gave us a civics lesson. We understood, if you didn't know before, the separation of powers between the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch of government. She continually said to those who questioned her about policy, that's not my job as a judge. I am here to interpret and apply the law, not to make new law, not to set policy. This is the first confirmation hearing that I've witnessed where you had a candidate who did not become emotional, did not become frustrated by any of the inquiries of her background. She was just very clear, and it was as if I were in a law school class with one of the best teachers ever presented in the school. One who knew the law, one who practiced the law, one who was experienced in interpreting the law as a judge. And so I look forward to Judge Jackson being installed on the United States Supreme Court. I am convinced that she's perhaps the most qualified person we've had presented to the court since Thurgood Marshall. And she has the credentials, she has the temperament, judicial temperament. She has the ability, I think, to represent all of us well and to make sure that the rule of law is followed and applied justly and fairly. Today, we want you to join us in our excitement about the celebration of 25 years of the Wall Street Project, what it has meant to financial service companies who are owned and operated by African Americans and persons of color. But more than that, 25 years later, we're able to witness the first African American female to chair the New York Stock Exchange. That's a big deal. And so we congratulate Sharon Bowen on being appointed to this, elected to this position. And then as we look at Wall Street and what Wall Street has meant historically and what it means today, we've moved from being slaves sold on auction blocks in New York, traded as commodities, to now being traders, to being financial service companies. We are moving ahead, and our founder and leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, has opened up so many doors for us. As I watched him ring the bell on the New York Stock Exchange, it was a gratifying moment as he was surrounded by 3 of his children, Santita Jackson, Yusuf Jackson, and Jonathan Jackson, and then by the chair of the board of the Rainbow Push Coalition, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and one of our Trade Bureau members, Cynthia DeBartolo. All of this is a result of the work and effort of Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition. And so I know you're proud as you watch this video, this moment in history. You'll get to celebrate with all of us.
Live from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, it's March 21st, 2022. Please welcome the Rainbow Push Wall Street Project in celebration of its 25th anniversary. To honor the occasion, they are ringing the closing bell of the New York Stock Exchange.
What's your message for the 25th anniversary of Wall Street Project?
New markets initiative, new markets initiative. There are markets we've not tapped yet. The idea of procurement budget of, say, the athletic teams, football, basketball, baseball, universities. Procurement, what they procure, means what we can produce. That become new markets initiative. And what's missing in the 4 stages: market, money, talent, location, and growth. Market, money, talent, location, and growth. We get money, market, and talent, we grow. And I think many of them are behind the wall. They've not been sought, when they've not known how to seek. We teach them, on one hand, those who have, seeking those who have not sought to seek. So it's kind of play on words, but in some senses, when the new team sits down to the table, they know what to expect. The old team doesn't know what to expect. We've found common ground. Our struggle is move from economic battleground, racial battleground, economic common ground to moral higher ground. We're not fighting over people at the stock exchange, fighting over stocks and bonds.
Welcome to this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary. We begin this week with a story about a hostile takeover in the making in Tennessee. The sovereignty of Mason, Tennessee, a majority Black and majority Democratic town, is being threatened by the state's comptroller, Jason Mumpower. In an unusual move, the comptroller directly appealed to the residents of the town, bypassing any communication with the town's elected officials. Mason is a town where 60% of its almost 1,400 residents are Black. The town was led by white elected officials until 2016, when nearly all of those serving in local government resigned amid allegations of fraud and corruption. Today, all but one of the key elected positions are held by Blacks. The demand is that the town relinquish its charter and merge with the Republican-controlled Tipton County, or face what is in effect seizure by the state. If the state takes over, the comptroller will oversee the town's budget and management and will assert authority to approve any expenditure more than $100. Beneath the surface, the issue appears to really be about the proximity of the town to a soon-to-be-built Ford Motor plant that will produce electric vehicles. the anticipated economic impact of a new multi-billion-dollar manufacturing facility will be significant, as the development is expected to produce more than 25,000 new jobs and more than $22 million in new state taxes once it begins operations. The facility will be built only 5 miles from Mason and will attract much attention from those who will be looking to relocate to take advantage of new job and business opportunities in the area. The comptroller has argued that the current elected leadership cannot handle the opportunities and challenges to come. The allegations and suspicions of potential fraud are being projected as justification for the state to step in and take over the small, mostly black town. In reality, there is something else going on here. Know that the Rainbow Push Coalition will be fully engaged to ensure that the ability of the town of Mason to thrive is not undermined by racially tinged motives and money grabbing. Stay tuned. This week, we gathered in New York City at the Sheraton Times Square Hotel to mark 25 years since the first Wall Street Project Economic Summit in 1997. The Wall Street Project was created to promote inclusion, opportunity, and economic growth by challenging public and private sector entities to expand business opportunities with minority and women-owned businesses on Wall Street and across the financial services sector, to expand the representation of minorities on corporate boards and in C-suites, and enhance capital access for Black and other minority businesses while building economic resilience and strength in communities of color. We were joined by New York Mayor Eric Adams, who shared his vision for the nation's largest city to be a model for equitable participation throughout city government. Reverend Jackson's leadership in creating the Wall Street Project was acknowledged with congratulatory expressions from former President Bill Clinton, former Fed Chair Alan Greenspan, and former Labor Secretary Alexis Herman. During the summit, we looked at the opportunities to expand equity and inclusion in professional sports, both on and off the field, as Reverend Jackson announced plans to develop a 32-market strategy in every metropolitan area that serves as home to a National Football League franchise to examine and evaluate each team's diversity, equity, and inclusion across the board, including on the field and off. The analysis will look at corporate leadership as well as coaching staff, vendors as well as front office, and professional services, lawyers, accountants, medical personnel, administrative staff, facilities and maintenance staff, as well as player personnel. We also explored the current state of diversity on Wall Street and the need to do more to expand opportunities on boards of directors and in C-suites, as well as participation in complex transactions by minority broker-dealers and money management firms. We also acknowledged the contributions of Ariel Investments founder and co-president John Rogers, former Fed Chair Alan Greenspan, and Bank of New York Mellon for their efforts in advancing the mission of the Wall Street Project in expanding opportunities for people of color in the financial services sector. We also celebrated women trailblazers on Wall Street, including Lynn Martin, the second woman and 68th president of the New York Stock Exchange, our Wall Street Project co-chair, Cynthia DeBartolo, founder and CEO of the first disabled and woman-owned broker-dealer member of the exchange, and Sharon Bowen, the first Black woman board chair of the New York Stock Exchange. They all joined us in celebrating 25 years of expanding the marketplace, with more work to be done. Here's to the next 25 years. It was Saturday, March 11th, 1972. Approximately 10,000 black people gathered, men and women, across the spectrum of black beauty and in the name of black power in Gary, Indiana, at the invitation of Mayor Richard Hatcher. The convening was to assess, address, and establish an agenda of interest and political demands directed at the political system and not a specific political party. Mayor Hatcher opened the convention with this declaration, quote, "We demand that any party that asks our support acknowledge the inhumanity every black man, woman, and child faces each and every day of his existence up and down the length and breadth of this land," end quote. Reverend Jackson was one of the leaders during that convention, and he admonished and exhorted the delegates that there must be a more inclusive agenda with an expanded political power created by maximum political participation by black people. The political demands required an economic foundation and framing that acknowledged the value proposition of what had already been extrapolated from black people and black communities, and that political redress was required to overcome the obstacles often constructed by government policy and economic greed. But Reverend Jackson reminded us that there is a healing, soothing power that is available to us. In his words, quote,
"There is a bomb in Yeary today. That bomb lifts my black family above the crucifixion by white racism, to live in the splendor of love and the comfort of mercy. There is a bomb that reaches down into the windows of my soul and assures me that one day black men will sit in seats of power, rule with a sense of compassionate love. There is a bomb in Yeary today, in Newark, in Fayette, in Richmond, in Pontiac, in Jackson. From the ashes of race hate, from corruption and economic decadence, there is a bomb today. That bomb is strong medicine, right down to the herb, right down to the root. It will humanize white politics. There is a bomb. It will radicalize black politics. There is a bomb. We are a mighty nation. There is a bomb. In the name of Nat Turner, Sojourner Truth, Mary McLeod Bethune, Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin King. What time is it? When we come together, what time is it? When we respect each other, what time is it? When we get ourselves confident, what time is it?
Much of the coverage of the 1972 convention was provided by black media outlets. It is indeed black press that have been vital communication lifelines for accurate information affecting the interests of black communities. The Rainbow Push Coalition family joins with the Black Press of America in celebrating 195 years of giving voice and presence to the experiences of black people in America. The Freedom's Journal, the nation's first black-owned newspaper, was started to fill the obvious void of black perspectives around the issue of abolition of slavery. It was March 16, 1827, that the pronouncement was heard that we wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. Black newspapers like the North Star, the Afro-American, the Chicago Defender and the Chicago Crusader, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Carolina Times, the Atlanta Voice, the New York Amsterdam News, and many others have made the values and voices of the black community audible to the world. Whether the topics were about international and national news, cultural perspectives, biographies, help wanted ads, or editorials by leading Black leaders and thinkers. The Black press has been and continues to be a critical asset for the information and cultivation of Black ideas and ideals. As the production models continue to evolve from print to online platforms, the mission of the Black press is as critical today as it has ever been. We celebrate 195 years of service to the Black community and to the world, and we will continue to rely on and partner with the Black press to speak to the concerns of Black people and the world. This week, the world stood in awe of a highly qualified, even overqualified, yet dignified and proud Black woman as she showed us all stamina beyond imagination. The credulity of those who questioned her to challenge her intellect and her dignity was captured in the ignorant questioning of Senator Marsha Blackburn, when the senator asked the judge if she could provide a definition for the word woman. Judge Jackson replied, quote, "I am not a biologist," end quote. But history gives us the benefit of ancestral cover. Senator Blackburn needed only to study the words of one whose perspective would likely be categorized as critical race theory today. But as we come to the close of Women's History Month, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's presence in form and her presence in stature has inspired us all. And so, Senator Blackburn, here's your answer. Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North, all talking about rights, the white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I've plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? Someone from the audience whispers, intellect. That's it, honey. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in black there, he says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it. The men better let them. Obliged to you for hearing me. And now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. That message was delivered in 1851 at the Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio, at the Old Stone Church. Maybe Senator Blackburn should have studied history. So, Senator, there's your answer. By the way, delayed outrage is false outrage. The antics of Senator Lindsey Graham, who had the same judicial record before him during Judge Jackson's confirmation a year ago, chose this moment to attempt to intimidate and excoriate the professionalism and credibility of arguably the most qualified nominee to the Supreme Court that we have seen in our lifetimes. Will white Southern senators find themselves on the right side of history? It matters not. They may vote no. But the genius of God, who has created everything we do see from that which we can't see, the God of our weary years and our silent tears, has declared this as the moment that will not be denied. She, Judge Jackson, earned it, not alone. In the words taken from the Shakespearean tragedy Hamlet, the men dost protest too much, methinks. To all the women in our lives, mothers, sisters, daughters, friends, wives, allies, and colleagues who have prayed for us, protected us, sacrificed for us, and led us all to this place and this moment, we thank you. Thank you for persevering. Your labor is not in vain. So look out, y'all. A black woman named Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is coming to take her seat on the bench, her dignity intact and her preparation unassailed. May we all do so well as she. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Margie's son.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word PUSH, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.